This Daf Yerushalmi Shekalim Yatzchel Oz edition Daf Yud Ches Malv, the third line down. I'm Rabbi Zir Rabbi Asi, and in the Vilna Yerushalmi, that's evidently right at the top of Yud Aleph on the base, one or two lines down. And in the Vilna Bavli Yerushalmi, it's 19 lines before the end of the parak on Daf Zayin on base. Actually. It's maybe 16. 1 second. Yeah, not 19, 16. Amalei Rabbi Zir Rabbi Asi. Rabbi Zir said to Rabbi Asi. Once we were talking yesterday about the saying something with precision, b'shem omro. So Rabbi Zir, who was one of the big renowned for this meticulous precision. I said yesterday that we don't have to pay attention to Rav Sheshish's citing things and people's names because he was not able to see them. So Rabbi Zir said to Rabbi Asi, Chachim Rabbi Lebar Pesoya, different Yerushalmi, Parpoda, Bar Pedoya. Zatar Mishmaitz Mishmeit, you would say over his name. Amalei said Rabbi Yochanan or Mishmeit. And here, of course, Rabbi Asi is telling us a very fundamental principle, which is that in Masorah, then you're allowed to rely on your Rebbe, who himself was reliable, and therefore he's saying, "You're right. I never saw Bar Poda, but I saw Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said in his name, and Rabbi Yochanan, of course, has a Nemonis on his own. And of course, we have throughout Shas people quoting, people quote who quote, and so on and so forth. Similarly, Rabasi, I guess a different time, Chacham Rebbe LeRav. You know Rav, that you're quoting things in his name. Rabasi was from Bava. I don't know if he met Rav in Bava in Eretz Yisrael. Amalei said Rav Ada Barava, Arma Mishmei. It sounds like in Bava because Rav Ada Barava is I'm not sure actually. I think Rav Ada Barava was a Babylonian Mora. I don't know about that. I think so. Anyway, that but here it says Rabbi. So maybe it was in Eretz Yisrael. Anyway, so Rav Ada Barava said stuff in the name of Rav, and he was also had a cheskas kashu, so to speak, on that. Okay, now the Gemara goes back. We speak about David and Sivsois of David's Bekever. I wanted people to remember him after his Ptira, and we're talking about now the Ptira of David. Ein doshem elitzonim. There's no generation which doesn't have scoffers, cynics. Some generations are blessed with more than others. So, but in the door of David, they also had Leitzonim. What are the prutzim of the generation of the people who are prutzim in the sense that they were cynics, hypocrites, scoffers, rebellious people? They go by David's windows. Omilo said, I guess David didn't have Social Security, Secret Service, Social Security. They have Secret Service keeping the passers-by away. So they would say to him, David, must say by the Beis HaMikdash, must say Beis Hashem Nelech. When is the Beis HaMikdash going to be built? When are you going to go to the Beis HaMikdash? And of course, they knew that it was not going to be built during David's lifetime. Because Baruch Hu said, it's not for you to build a Beis HaMikdash, but Shlomo, your son, is going to build a Beis HaMikdash. So in essence, they were saying, when is the Baruch Hu going to take you away and give us somebody else as king instead? So David said, they had a mind to anger me. They were taunting me. Yovalai, may it not come upon me. In other words, it may come upon me. In other words, saying like it's lashon of he should be cursed if he's not telling the truth. If I not rejoice in that which they said. In other words, they meant the shlo lishma, but there was also lishma, which is that they wanted to be in the Beis HaMikdash. Samachti only Beis Hashem Nelech. I was happy that they had, if only because they wanted to see me go, but because they expressed the sentiment of wanting to see the Beis HaMikdash built. That of itself was good for me. We bring a drasha about how Baruch Hu says, even though the Beis HaMikdash is going to only be built by Shlomo your son, nevertheless your avodas Hashem is precious to me. When your days are filled and you will lay with your forefathers, that's when Shlomo Melech will come up and take his place. As the pasuk says here in Shmuel Beis Zayin Yud Beis, so there's a beautiful haftacha there about Shlomo Melech taking David Melech's place. But the point of this drasha here is the Yomim Meleim. Amar lo Kadosh Baruch Hu David. Kadosh Baruch says, David, Yom Shleim Ani Monecha. I'm going to count your days as whole. V'lo Yomim Chaserim, not as missing. In other words, the fact there's no base during your lifetime, that's not a problem for me, because your Avodah Hashem is precious to me. Klum Shlomo Bincha, even the base of Karbanos Tzibor. Why is Shlomo going to build base of Mikdash to bring Karbanos Tzibor? The article points out, actually, I should say, Shnus Nuschos points out that in Yerushalmi and Brachos and Kiddushin, the word Tzibor is not there, and the reason for that is that, as the article points out, that even by a bama, you can bring Karbanos Tzibor. It's Karbanos Yachid, which are not going to be brought by a bama, which need the base on Mikdash. Karbanos Tzibor you can bring by a bama. Okay, so article says there, if you have Karbanos Tzibor there, there's no Karbanos Tzibor which are not brought by a bama. But in any event, the passages that the word Tzibor is superfluous, and it should say Lachri Karbanos. That people should bring Karbanos Yachid. Well, Chavel Light Stocker Mishnah Shato say Yesim not Karban. Your Stocker Mishnah, what you're doing is more precious to me than the Karbanos. The article references the pasuk is both from Shmuel Ches. Shmuel Beis Ches and Devarim Alf Yud Ches David also Mishpat Stocker Chol Hamo. So that the Stocker Mishnah which David Melech is doing is more chashuv, at least the Karbanos Yachid, maybe even the Karbanos Tzibor, but at least the Karbanos Yachid. Shneimar says Osel Stocker Mishpat Nivchar LaHashem Mizevach. To do tzedakah and mishpat for Kadosh Baruch Hu is more chosen, more precious than bring karbanos. The article brings down a couple of related psukim here, which is nice to see. He says that the famous pasuk from the Haftorah Parashat Zohar, "Hachevetz LaHashem b'oz uzvachim." Kadosh Baruch Hu will want different karbanos. Kishma Hashem b'kol Hashem, as much as to listen to the voice of Hashem. Yishma mizvevach tov, to adhere to the words of Kadosh Baruch Hu is better than a korban. Lakshiv, to listen is better than the fattest part of the choice fats which go on the mizbech. And another pasuk from Hosea, ki chevetz chavasti v'lo zevach v'das elokim elos. I want the chesed, I want not karbanos, and the knowledge of Kadosh Baruch Hu more than any burnt offering. So David Melech's avodas Hashem in terms of tzedek and mishpat is more chashuv to Kadosh Baruch Hu, and it means is yomim are shleimim, right? Then and it's not as if something is lacking, because karbanos are of secondary importance compared to tzedek or tzedakah or mishpat. Says I should also invoke the famous pasuk in Micha, Ma Hashem chafetz mimcha derech michakim asos chesed. I don't remember. So those are the main parts of Judaism, tzedakah, mishpat, and chesed, the mishpat, and tzedakah. Of course, David was all three, and that's superior in importance to the karbanos. Okay, Yerushalmi Shekalim, Perek B'Shlosha Prakim. 3 times a year they would do the Trumas Alishka to take funds for the ongoing purchase of karbanos. B'Prosa Pesach, the Morris is going to explain 15 days before Pesach. B'Prosa Atzeres, 15 days before Shavuos. B'Prosa Chag, 15 days before Sukkot, to get ready for the onslaught of Avodah, which is coming up. This, according to Tanakam, also times when you collect the animals to mice them. Now that's a constructive carbon Edo here, so let's see the carbon Edo inside. Unfortunately, say more or less the same thing, but say carbon Edo. The 3 times when you do collect your animals, give mice behema. These times Chachamim determine to mice the animals which are born in between each goren. Just like when you pile a heap of grain in your silo, it determines that that's when you should meister that grain. So these times forbid the animals to be, which are born, to eat until you meister them. But before each of these times, eat them even though you didn't meister them. obviously only the Meiser 3 times a year, so the animals that you're going to shecht in the interim won't be subject to the Meiser procedure. The reason Chacham is set these 3 times, and also what the Machlekes is that you're about to learn, why they argue, and Farsh Gemara is going to explain. It also appears several times in Bahavi and Yerushalmi, this discussion. So the Gemara says, that the Mishnah says rather, that was Tanakama, who is Divrei Rabbi Akiva. And we see that when you turn the page in your article. Divrei Rabbi Akiva, who's the Tanakama. Ben Azay Omer Be'esrim Tisha Ba'adar, the 3 times a year from Ma'aser Behema are the 29th day of Adar, Be'echad B'Sivan, the first day of Sivan, Be'esrim Tisha B'Av, 29th day of Av. Lezer B'Shimon Omrim Be'echad B'Nisan, Be'echad B'Sivan, Be'esrim Tisha B'Elu. First day of Nisan, first day of Sivan, for the 29th day of Elul. V'lama Amru B'Esrim Tisha B'Elu. Why did they say 29th day of Elul? Right, it was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, Rosh Chodesh Sivan, should have been Rosh Chodesh Tishrei. V'lo Amru Be'echad B'Tishrei, and they issue Yontif. Yerushalmi Yontif, it's Yontif, and you can't meiser on Yontif. So the question is, why you can't meiser on Yontif? The Parsha is because it's like Mechsek and Masakin, or it's because you have to mark them with a red mark, the meiser, the 10th animal. So you don't do it on Yontif. And therefore they made it early. They made it on the 29th day of Elul. Just want to add that the article brings it down here, note 6, that actually the Gemara itself says the reason of the red stripe, and Tosfos says there in Bechoros Daf Nun Ches that it could the reason why it doesn't give the reason that it doesn't say because it's like fixing it is because since it goes out on its own, so if it's not like you're actually meisering actively, which would be the case by meiser of grain, or produce, where you're actively removing the meiser. There, in the case of meiser, here in the case of meiser behema, walks on its own. So therefore, the Gemara in Bechoros gives the reason of the red stripe, not the reason of the of being masakin. Says more, B'shlosha Prakim Mishana Amra Vel Kolhein Dedin and Pros Pauga. Anytime it says pros, it means half. What's a half of? Like a prusa at the cut. Pauga B'shlosha Mil Kolam Moed Shdosh Chazon. So it's half the 30 days before you have to which you darshan halachos of the yontif. So of course by Shavuos it's not, there is no, you don't need 30 days to darshan, but it's kind of like it's the same. Low plug. We use the same language, even though it doesn't have those 30 days of droshes before Shavuos. So now, where do these dates of Ma'aser Behema come from in Mishnah? Rabbi Yechon said, Midnei she'en Pirkei Leda, because there are times in which these animals give birth. And therefore, since the times which animals give birth, so these are times when you therefore collect them in order to meiser them. As the Korban says, some give early in the year, they give birth before Pesach. Those who wait until between Pesach and Seret, a little bit later. Those who come even later in the year, but I guess they give birth in batches and at regular times. So that's a logical time to Ma'aser Behema after a batch is born. And Tanchu Barchia B'Shem Yeshua ben Levi said, "Kadesh Behema Mutzil Ole Regolim." So in order that animals should be prevalent for Ole Regolim. Now it's not the Ma'aser Behema animals; those Ma'aser Behema animals are bought by the owner; they're not sold. But as the Talmud Chadatin and others say as well. The ain't going by Ma'aser Behema ab proser golim, since you collect them and gather them to proser golim. That means umashi inshe behemton ados osman. People are going to keep their animals around until that time. In other words, in order to do kind of mitzvah properly, so people are going to not shecht that many animals into them. They'll wait till that time right before Yontif, and then there'll be a lot of animals around in the marketplace. Because all those animals they were waiting to meiser just before Yontif, now they're going to be able to be sold, right? So as he says, the machi inchi behem that are also zman lo shchetinu at shiasim zman agoren shuv solchem. They're not going to ice them until the time of the goren, which is right next to yontim. Yishu behem was mitzuyos lo legolim likach mehem ben achila ben korbanos. And there are going to be lots of animals on the market for whether it's for eating or for the purpose of for bringing korbanos. Amar Rabbi Yudan. Rabbi Yudan said another reason. Shlo v'idei baal ta'acher. The not to come to baal ta'acher. So Kotak Nechan says to go also ma'aser behem you ever baal ta'acher. This brings down Josh Rosh Daf Hey. Therefore, they made it right before these Yom Tovim. Of course, you have always 3 Yom Tovim to over baal ta'acher, but still, we want to make sure to make it adjacent to the Yom so that you're going to bring it. Amar Rabbi Yosef said, Kol masher tivlo over. Let's see, the Farshim explains this. The Korban brings that 2 pshatim, one that it's a statement, one that's a question. Bnei Moshe goes with the assumption that it's a question. And so let's see the Korban since he brings that both. Kol masher tivlo over, mefarished over baal ta'acher. He's talking about ta'acher. Hainu lefishu masher tivlo. Because you're delaying your teva, going on ma'aser behema. The miyab pirkei later chayav la'aser. Maybe when the pirkei later comes, you have to ma'aser. Before the goren, you're allowed to sell and shech without being ma'aser because berg basa. Nevertheless, kimishegia goren. Once the goren comes, the yeshlo arbei behemos and has a lot of animals. Havli ketevel drabara. It's not really ta'acher. It's as if it's tevel. Right, and therefore you're over about ta'acher. Inami, so that's the first shot. The same shot is like I said, Pnei Moshe says, B'lasha kusha kamar. It's a question. Tevel zeh over. Does if you leave this as tevel as the baal ta'acher? How's baal ta'acher relevant here? That's therefore, as Pnei Moshe says, so he's saying the way Pnei Moshe explains, he elaborates a bit more. I guess we really should see the Pnei Moshe. He says that there is no Baal Ta'acher here. There's no such thing. Let's see Pnei Moshe inside. I'll change it right. I'm going to ask because I think he gives him more justice than the Chomeir. B'tmiya v'chi al ma'asher tevel lo tiknu somebody leaves tevel and doesn't fix it. I'm over Baal Ta'acher. What? Over. You can't have. There's no such thing as Baal Ta'acher until you 3 Rum Tumah pass, like I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, right? So therefore, Baal Ta'acher does not pass here. As long as you didn't burn mice to them, there's no Baal Ta'acher. And also, I would add, basically, say before, there's no Baal Ta'acher immediately afterwards either. Again, until 3 Yom Tovim pass. So Pnei Moshe is saying there's no Baal Ta'acher beforehand. I'm saying there's no Baal Ta'acher afterwards. But again, the reason, like the second Pshat Korban, it's either the main Mitzvah or Golim, or like Rabbi Yochanan, who says that it's because those are Pirkei later. I think the most astonishing shot is a very brief shot given by the Reb Chaim. It says Kol Masha Tivol Milino LeKohen. It's going on the a regular tevel. And he's saying it's a statement. It's not a question. He's saying the statement is that anybody who doesn't give his tevel we see from Ma'aser Behema, where there's an issue Baal Ta'acher, even though it's not real Baal Ta'acher, that therefore you're supposed to give it right before Yom Tov in order to bring up a Yom Tov. Anytime you delay any tevel, you have tevel that you can give Ma'aser and give it to the Kohen, you have to do it. Right? So you have to do it forthwith. So it's a statement. Okay. Now we're going to further discussion of the dates. Tamatim, we went over there, right? Meir Omer, Be'echod, Be'elu, Rosh Hashanah, Ma'aser Behema. The first day of Elul is Rosh Hashanah, Ma'aser Behema. He was not brought down in our Mishnah. Meir is the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah and in Becheres. Not our Mishnah. Yeah. Benazir me'aluim misasiv ne'atzon. Benazir says the ones who are in Elul have their own meiser. They don't go together with B'nai Tishrei or B'nai Av. They have their own meiser. That's the own meiser behema. Their own goren, I should say. Time of the mayor. What's larger a mayor that Rosh Chodesh Elul is the meiser behema. Akis mitzmatzus le'emin hashonos. He says until Elul is the time when last year's batch, so to speak, is still giving birth, as the Korban explains. Ad Elul Mishachal Shachrones Yoldos Min Oson Shis Abu Koidem Nisan. It's really that Rosh Chodesh Nisan is kind of the demarcation point, but the gestation period is five months. So therefore, till Rosh Chodesh Elul, they're giving birth from those which are conceived before Nisan, and after Rosh Chodesh Elul, they're giving birth. The Mikam Ech Hey Maschilus Lele Min HaChadoshes. They are giving birth from the new crop, so to speak. In other words, the one which they were conceived after Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Really, it's Rosh Chodesh Nisan, which makes sense because Nisan is Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, the Elul becomes the Rosh Hashanah from Isaiah based on being Echad Ben Nisan, being the actual Rosh Hashanah for when they conceived. Okay, that's right. Meir's opinion. And now we're on the top of your test now, so we'll stop here and we'll go into the other opinions next time.